Conrad girlies, who else is so excited to see what happens with the Infinity Necklace in season 3? Because Belly has the necklace, and this is obviously so different from the books, and I just like can't wait to see like how that ties into the Bonrad love story. I'm totally kidding. I'm actually still just stuck on the fact that people find this Infinity Necklace romantic because he didn't one time give that necklace to that girl in good faith. Like, not one single time did this man throw that infinity collar at her in good faith. Like, every single time it was about her moving on, and then he tossed it at her. In the show and in the books, from the contraceptive drawer to him tossing it at her the morning of her wedding to his brother, him throwing that rusty thing at her and saying catch. And I know I have, but I could really do another dissertation on this because I can't get over the fact that he literally like never gives it to her for a good reason. Like, not once. Like, the whole Infinity Necklace and Infinity as a concept is actually extremely corny. For one, like, the whole Infinity thing is like very corny. Like, I'm not gonna lie, to me that's corny because, you know, like back in 2009, then Infinity was everywhere. Like, you couldn't swing a bat without hitting an Infinity Necklace or ring or something. It was corny. It's also not about Belly. It's about something that Conrad told Belly, and it didn't even have the pancake origin story in the book. But literally, the way that collar is used in the show and in the books is actually really manipulative, and I can't believe everybody is still romanticizing it. Infinity. It's like, yeah, they can repeat that same cycle infinitely over and over again, and I can't believe that they're probably gonna like make Jeremiah find it or something. You guys are really making me miss the Silly Summer program, because I feel like a lot of people are seeing my videos now who weren't around on the internet spaces every week last summer when the show was airing. I don't know if this applies to you. If you weren't, like, it was absolutely shambolic. Like, the allegations we would have to fight every single week, and it was so exhausting. Like, and I'm not talking about like cute little allegations we would get, like narcissistic abuser, psychological manipulator, violent aggressor, attempted, you name it. But like, this one has always been one of my faves, and it's like honestly making me miss it and wish the show was on right now. So the Lord with the bad breath allegation is that in the last episode during the motel scene, so like when Belly wakes up in the motel, right, and Conrad and Jeremiah are both sleeping on either side of the bed, and then she goes into the bathroom and she starts getting ready, puts on her Finch sweatshirt for her man, she does her hair and brushes her teeth, right, and this song is playing, no one can see me like you do, and it's beautiful. And Belly's in the bathroom the whole time, and at some point while Belly is still in the bathroom, Jeremiah leaves the motel to go get breakfast, and she thinks he left in this whole thing, right, and then he comes back and they start making out to XO in an absolutely perfect moment of a perfect season of television. But the thing is, haters basically tried to create this case that he must have had like really bad breath, because if Belly was in the bathroom the whole time, he couldn't have brushed his teeth. Obviously, like, Belly didn't have any complaints, right? But my honest take on this is that everybody was kind of dramatic about it, because people kiss in the morning without brushing their teeth all the time, and like, I feel like if you say you've never done that, you're probably lying. And he probably at least like drank some water or something, but Belly had nothing to say about it, okay? So it was just
something I keep noticing about movies these days is that there seem to be so many fewer films about adults in their 30s and 40s, and the examples that we do get are so often about like a stunted growth in contemporary adulthood, that is not just about like the milestones that our parents and their parents reached, that most people in my generation and younger haven't reached and might not reach, like buying a house or having kids or things like that. But a lot of these movies are about less so like the structure of the accomplishments and more about the fact that like adults aren't really adults. We're like the cool, fun adults, and that's what it feels like it's speaking to more so than anything, which I think is also really indicative of how obsessed we are right now as a culture with youth as social currency. Like, I don't know, maybe someone much smarter than me with like a degree in sociology could tell you like what it means when we're socially obsessed with youth like we are now. And to a degree, I think we're always obsessed with youth. But right now, it's like, I think that's one of the big reasons for like the Gen Z millennial thing, is just because being slightly older is considered so deeply uncool in modern society. And it's weird to me because rom-coms didn't used to exclusively be about people in their 30s. There were obviously rom-coms that were about younger people, and not just rom-coms. Like Twister is a great example, because I loved Twisters, but the original Twister was about two adults in their 30s getting divorced so that they could get remarried. Like, and now, like, yes, Glenn Powell is 35, but Daisy Edgar Jones is like 26. Like, it's more so about capitalizing off the youth, I think. But there used to be a ton of movies that were about like adults in their 30s and 40s, and they were never depicted as being uncool or unseemly. Like One Fine Day is one of my favorite rom-coms of all time. Michelle Pfeiffer and George Clooney are so cute. They play single parents. They're both in their late 30s in this movie, and they play single parents that meet and like have a romance. Thelma and Louise, like adults doing adult shit. Hello. I mean, there are so many great movies about like adults, and they don't have to be like serious, but like Julia Roberts played the younger new wife in this movie, and she was still 31. Meg Ryan was 40 when this came out. Like, there used to be tons of movies about adults in their 30s and 40s, and even though they were not necessarily depicted as like having their lives together, there was often a ton of chaos. They weren't depicted as like being inept or like lesser adults. Like, I think of movies like Mermaids with Cher, where she's like a hot single mom in her 40s, and she is like definitely having trouble like doing the things adults are supposed to do. But it's without like the zany infantilization of so much contemporary like adult storytelling. And I feel like there's this constant need to impress upon younger people and ourselves that like we're still hip, we're still cool, we're offbeat and quirky enough that like we're not like other adults. And I feel like that's pandering to not just the young people that we so crave the approval of right now, but also like to prove to ourselves that we haven't reached the point that is so horrible, like aging. And I don't know, I feel like there used to be movies about adulthood that allowed you to acknowledge that living in this world is hard and sucks and fucking stupid. I don't know, I just feel like it's weird, and I miss those kinds of movies because I think they're fun. Because I think a lot of times when you get into your 30s and 40s, you have more baggage, more mess. The stories can be like really rich character studies, and I would just like to see that again. I would like to see dynamics between adults in their 30s and 40s that are comfortable being adults in their 30s and 40s. Film critics on Twitter have been talking about this movie like it personally ran over their dog, and the fan response has been predictably overwhelmingly and enthusiastically positive, with very negative reactions to anyone with any criticisms of this movie whatsoever. I saw this movie this morning at a 9 a.m. showing. I dragged my ass out of bed, and I'm at Comic-Con. I also avoided all spoilers before my screening, so thank God for small miracles. And before I get into it, I just want to say watching this film was a very mixed experience for me. And I know no matter how many positives I bring to this review, there are going to be people who just want to call me a hater. That's totally fine if you need to label me a hater. But it's not just that I like comic book movies or movies in general. I have been reading comic books for like 20 years. I love Deadpool. The X-Men are my absolute favorite. I believe that the X-Men movies, some of them, are some of the best superhero movies that have been made to date, and they're very special and important to me personally. There's not going to be any direct spoilers in this video, but I am going to reference some general plot points, and I'm going to start with the positive. First of all, I think the setup of the story is actually really good. I think casting Matthew Macfadyen as this dweeby TVA pencil-pushing like narc is a great idea. I do think the amount of both in-universe lore and like meta movie making and movie history knowledge you have to have going into this to understand the plot might be a bit much to ask of general audiences, but I think it's very on brand and fun to have Deadpool address like the tarnishing of Logan's legacy and the way the character was left before this movie and why he's being brought back and the cynicism behind that. I think it's smart. I think it was one of like the best scenes in the movie because I don't think the action is shot very interestingly in this movie. I think there's a very heavy use of very obvious CGI, not in a way that helps the visuals, but clearly was there to cut costs and make production go more smoothly. But oh my God, I was supposed to be talking about positives. How do we get to critique so soon? One of the highlights of the movie is Hugh Jackman and their chemistry in general. I know the Ryan Reynolds of it all is like a love it or hate it kind of thing, but I think he is very well cast as this character. I think he makes a lot of sense and makes a great Wade Wilson. Hugh Jackman is again fantastic as Wolverine. I feel like there is a very clear reason why audiences have resisted seeing him replaced over the last few decades, and that's because he brings everything you could possibly want to this character. And this is a different version of Wolverine that still feels very authentically like true to the comics. And they have a great dynamic. It works really well. I wish there was more substance to the actual story, but the two of them work very well in what story there is. Again, I do think their fight scenes are underwhelming because there's not a lot of emphasis on actual choreography or cinematography. It's a lot of jab and like trying to squeeze gore in, again, using mostly CGI, which doesn't super work for me in terms of like wowing me. But the big thing for me is just that this story could have gone in literally any direction, and I don't typically love the critique of what a movie wasn't as opposed to what it was, but it's crazy when you have a blank slate like a multiverse where you can literally pull characters from any dimension, you can do literally anything you want, and it still just feels like the story went in the least interesting way possible. I just feel like all of the cameos, and there are gratuitous cameos that feel very tongue-in-cheek and winking at the audience. Again, I understand on brand for Deadpool, but feels a little bit tired in 2024. None of them left a really lasting impression. Some of them were funny and quirky and silly in the moment, but don't feel like they have any meaningful impact on me or the story in general. I will say there was one cameo early on that I think was the best one, that they really tried to employ the meta comedy that this movie was trying to achieve throughout just really, really well. There's a lot of heavy-handed needle drops in this movie. This movie was kind of sensory overload at all times, just trying to shove like the most like, wow, isn't this cool in your face at all times, which didn't super work for me. Emma Corrin as Cassandra Nova was, in my opinion, a great performance and a very underutilized role. That's a fantastic character. I would love to see her come back in like a proper X-Men movie. But yeah, a lot of elements were like that for me. There were elements that were well executed enough on their own, but didn't really feel like a very cohesive part of a satisfying story. And I think this movie isn't like a harbinger of doom or whatever. I think that a lot of critics are being very hyperbolic about it. I don't think it's like terrible. I think it's very run-of-the-mill. I think it's very fine. At the end of the day, I wouldn't say I was disappointed by this movie because I really didn't have expectations for it to begin with. I don't think it's gonna have as lasting an impression as like No Way Home. I think the gimmicks employed in this movie are less effective overall. I think it's gonna make a lot of money. I think general audiences are gonna have fun with it. But I will say, as someone who has seen almost every Marvel movie opening weekend since they've come out, the crowd that I saw this with opening weekend was enthusiastic, but not as enthusiastic as they have been in earlier years. So, but I do think it's incredibly unimaginative and not very good to look at, and a product of, you know, this is capitalism, baby. And I don't know. I think recognizing that for what it is fine, but yeah, it wasn't my favorite. I know that some people are gonna hate that, but I didn't hate it. I just got out of the Hall H Marvel panel at San Diego Comic-Con, and they announced that Robert Downey Jr. is coming back to play Victor Von Doom. It's a lot. They also announced that the Russo brothers are going to be directing the two announced Avengers movies, Avengers Secret Wars and Avengers Doomsday. Now, the basic premise of the comic book plot of Secret Wars is that two different universes collide into each other, like timelines, which makes sense why Marvel has been like hyping up the TVA a lot if that's the direction that they're going. So, in theory, the Victor Von Doom that Robert Downey Jr. is going to be playing is likely from a different universe, I would think, unless things want to get real dicey. That also potentially suggests that the Fantastic Four movie that's coming out in 2025 could take place in the same alternate universe. I think it's interesting that the timing of this casting lines up with the entire cast of the Fantastic Four heading off to London to start filming on Monday. It seems like Galactus is going to be the big bad in Fantastic Four, but I wouldn't be surprised if they introduced Robert Downey Jr. And it would make sense, because where the fuck have the Fantastic Four been in the regular Marvel universe? They're not calling it 616. I think that's what they want us to do, but that's the comic book universe. It's weird to me. I'll be honest, I don't really know how to feel about this. I do think it's an interesting choice. The crowd seemed really enthusiastic. Obviously, diehard Marvel fans love Robert Downey Jr. They're very excited about the Russo brothers coming back. So, I mean, it feels a little regressive. It feels maybe like an attempt to recapture the exact fan base that that has been dwindling, as opposed to reaching newer fans and recycling beloved franchise actors into different characters that they can cast in the multiverse is definitely one strategy. God knows Ryan Murphy has been doing it for years. So, you know, we'll see. It's interesting. I'm going to take some time to think about it, because I don't know.
So the Beetlejuice 2 trailer has been out for a hot second, and I would just like to say that I find it very, very interesting that Tim Burton only knows how to tell a character with a main female character, like only tell a story with a main female character. If he can, and this is really important, tell it as a teenage girl who has mommy issues. That's the only way he knows how to tell a story, because Beetlejuice 1, teenage girl, mommy issues. Wednesday, teenage girl, mommy issues. The number one girl in the world who's not supposed to have mommy issues too, which is supposed to be Wednesday Addams, and everyone is always like, no, I mean, it kind of makes sense that Wednesday would have mommy issues if she's like going into teenagehood, blah, 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 blah. and all teenagers have mommy issues, and it's like that's the exact reason why they shouldn't have mommy issues in the Addams Family, because Wednesday's not supposed to be like all teenagers. She's supposed to be the exact opposite of all teenagers, because that's the entire thing and point of the Addams Family. And then I'd really like to make it clear how much I love Jenna Ortega. This is important. And now Beetlejuice 2 is coming out starring Jenna Ortega. And what is she being? A teenage girl who is a goth with mommy issues. And I just feel like it kind of does not make sense if you're going to make a teenage girl and give her mommy issues and make her a weird goth girl if she's the daughter of Lydia Deetz. Like, I can understand teenage girl with mommy issues if you made her any other daughter in the world, but why did Lydia Deetz have mommy issues and all these issues with herself and her personality and blah, 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 and why was she strange and unusual? Oh yeah, because her mom was Catherine O'Hara. Am I saying? No, her mom was like just this perfect 90s woman, baddie, whatever, and too into the concept of being a part of society's like laws and standards, and so Lydia Deetz could see ghosts because she was strange and unusual. And now the entire issue with Jenna Ortega's daughter character of Lydia Deetz is that she does not believe in ghosts, but she's still a weird little goth girl. Make it make sense. Make it make sense. If you can make it make sense to me, I will believe it. But you will also have to fight against the part of me that wants every Michael Keaton movie to fail because he is my nemesis. Because he played Jack Frost when I was 3 years old. And I stand by that. Nemesis. Nemesis. Okay, thanks. Tim Burton's female characters have two personalities. One, the main character, when she's the lead of the story, has absolutely heinous mommy issues, and she's not like other girls. But she's specifically not like other girls in that she's a goth emo weirdo who doesn't like anyone ever and will judge you for existing, and is herself strange and unusual. And then there's the other side of it, which is that she's not the main character, she's the romantic lead to the main character. Corpse Bride, Sally, Winona Ryder's character in what's it called? The other thing, Edward Scissorhands, and they're just really feminine and soft, and yeah, they're kind of not like other girls in that they're very feminine and always wear dresses, and they're very soft, and they must in some way be saved by a man, but also sometimes they can be blonde, and they tend to, maybe not Winona Ryder's character in Edward Scissorhands, but definitely Sally, and definitely in some ways Corpse Bride, have daddy issues or romantic past issues. Because Sally not only has daddy issues, if you will, she also has romantic past issues with her maker who really wanted to bang her. Anyways, my point on this entire thing is that Tim Burton's annoying. And while I really like his movies and really enjoy his movies, two things can be true. And I'll watch The Nightmare Before Christmas every year on Halloween and Christmas without fail, because that's the time period. But I will also mock the fact that he thinks that women, there are only two types of women in the world. Because he really seems to think that there are only two types of women in the world. The soft feminine and Lydia Deetz. And you can try and tell me I'm wrong, but you can't. You know why? Because Lydia Deetz is Wednesday Addams, is Lydia Deetz's daughter Astrid in the new Beetlejuice movie. Okay, thanks, bye. Okay, two things. Actually, three things. One, this is nothing against you. Two, I find it so interesting, so very, very interesting that people are completely and utterly willing to forgo the fact that Henry Selick, or whatever his name is, mostly had something to do with Nightmare Before Christmas, and give Tim Burton all of the credit until someone has something to say that is negative about Nightmare Before Christmas, and then Tim barely had anything to do with it. I don't know who you're talking about. Like, that's barely his movie. And three, Corpse Bride may have taken place in the 1800s. does not mean that the Corpse Bride character is not exactly the same in so many ways as Sally and as any other female romantic lead that Tim Burton has created. Why? Because he only knows how to write two types of women. And just because something took place in the 1800s, it does not mean that the character doesn't need to have some sort of personality other than romantic lead. Because every Regency romance takes place in the Regency time period. And yet those characters tend to have different personalities. So anyways, like, two things can be true. Okay, thanks, bye. And again, this had nothing to do with you, nothing against you, just using this comment because it just made it so open and clear. Okay, thank you, bye.
Guys, I'm really scared right now. I'm hiding in my closet because I think they're right outside. Guys, Gen X is like right outside my door, and they said they're gonna knock the door down. They're out in front of my house with a bunch of millennials, and they won't stop drinking out of the hose. It's making them become so powerful, I don't know what to do.
Another thing in regards to the Cody Ko situation, I feel weird coming onto the internet and talking about a creator who has allegedly committed a crime and not also saving space for the alleged victim in question, because it should not be ignored that Tana Mongeau has been trying to bring attention to this for years. She has stood by her story for years. Other creators have attested to her story for years. And prior to this being brought to mainstream attention, if you went to the comment section on any video of Tana talking about this, it was flooded with some of the most blatant victim blaming I had ever seen. We have got to remember that people should not have to meet some idealized criteria in order to be deemed worthy of credibility or sympathy. And Tana herself has said that the only reason why she doesn't hold this event with trauma is because worse things have happened to her, which is a profoundly sad thing to think about. And it's even more sad to think about the fact that she is far from the only person who holds those experiences in the same way. However, she is one in a million in the fact that she has a platform and she can talk about her experiences and she can help people feel less alone. And my heart breaks for the people whose experiences have been invalidated in her comment section, all because people do not see Tana Mongeau as the ideal victim of a crime. The Cody Ko situation has gone from both diabolical and very upsetting to also fascinating. I've been on the subreddit like all day. First of all, him and his wife giving Emma Chamberlain her first hit off of a Juul when she was 16 and Kelsey was a teacher. Not only that, but documenting the crime that was. Giving nicotine to a minor as an adult. It's a crime. I'm pretty sure this is a crime across all 50 states. And you filmed it and uploaded it. It's beyond that decision itself being just diabolical, because clearly Cody Ko has no reservations about making diabolical decisions involving minors. But the fact that you were airheaded enough to film it and upload it on the internet, and then he performs, is it too late now to say sorry? At a DJ set? Yesterday? And, like, he probably would not be appearing in public right now if he wasn't bound by contracts and lawyers and, like, obligated to make these appearances. I also bet $1 billion that he is not ever going to make a statement about this. At least not one that would admit any kind of guilt about anything, because he's here on a visa. And if he was found guilty of a crime in America, he would not be in America for very much longer. And there's a pretty hefty mountain of evidence against this man, of his crimes. Not even just against Tana Mongeau and Emma Chamberlain. Like, go to the subreddit. It's bad. It's bad. His life is crumbling, and I'm very worried for their child. Like, he has a baby. They have a baby. There's a baby in all of this. There are very few content creators on here that inspire me to be a better person, which is kind of sad. But Sarah Shower, if you're watching this, Sarah Shower is one of the very few content creators on here that has actively inspired me to become a better, more educated person over the years. I grew up watching them on Vine. I saw their transition to YouTube. I watched them as I went through high school, and I have been fortunate enough to be following them throughout this entire past year. And they are somebody who, as I have witnessed them learn and grow, I have found myself wanting to learn and grow with them. And like, I don't want to sound overly gratuitous by just praising somebody for doing the research on things that have happened in society, but I do think it's worth noting that this person of significant influence on here has not only been doing the work to educate themselves on things behind the scenes, but has also been working to share it with their audience. And for me personally, that's a journey that I feel like I've started, but I'm not very far along on. Like, I was raised a Zionist evangelical Christian, and I only started distancing myself from that in like 2020 to 2021. So I know there's a lot of stuff that I still have to learn and I have to unlearn. And in the wake of so many people being exposed for absolutely terrible things on the internet, Sarah Schauer is one of the few people whose pages I feel like I consistently glean something from, as well as consistently reminds me that as much as I feel like I have learned over the last few years, I really don't know as much as I think I do. And I don't know, I just feel like it's something worth noting. So Sarah, if you see this, the work you've been doing behind the scenes has not gone on unnoticed, and it has not gone on uninspired. Which YouTuber have you had a really bad feeling about for a really long time and are just waiting to see something happen with? Because I have had this feeling about Mr. Beast from the day he started his YouTube channel. I might get canceled for that. I know a lot of people really love Mr. Beast and think he's a really good person. Nothing anybody ever tells me about this man is going to convince me that I could feel safe having my drink uncovered alone in a room with him. I know that part of how he gets the money he gives away to these people through these game shows is by making the videos. But watching a bunch of people who are all telling the audience that they are like trying to pay off their mortgage, trying to pay off medical bills, trying to put their kid through college, trying to pay rent, and then watch them compete by doing various physically and emotionally stressful and like humiliating things, while Mr. Beast just like watches them from his Mr. Beast podium and decides which one of them is the most deserving of his absolutely massive piles of cash. I don't care if the contestants signed a contract saying they were willing to participate. I don't even care if they were excited to participate, because I, as a viewer, feel really grossed out watching it. Because at this point, it's not about sharing money with people who need it anymore. There's 2,000 people in a stadium all competing for one sum of cash. That's not him being a good Samaritan anymore. Especially when they showed they were more than capable of giving like $2,000 to every person who was eliminated from the show and was going to complain about the conditions they were kept under. But even beyond that, like, it's your money. You can spend it how you want. Okay. He has shark eyes. He has shark eyes, and I don't trust him. Look at that man and tell me that he does not have shark eyes. He has shark eyes. So according to Rosanna Pansino, Mr. Beast offered all of the eliminated contestants from the Beast Games $1,000 not to sue them for the things they were subjected to. And when they were like, that's not even half of our rent, Mr. Beast, he was like, okay, we'll give you $2,000 not to sue us. When I was 18, I was in a car accident. I was at a stoplight behind a giant truck in my tiny Kia Spectra, and a giant van came up behind me, and the guy was texting and driving, and he slammed into the back of my car at like 50 miles an hour and totaled my car. He was driving a company vehicle. And let me just tell you, that tiny little company paid me a hell of a lot more than $2,000 not to sue them, and I can promise you that that tiny company did not have as much money as Mr. Beast does. And I can promise you that Mr. Beast is fully capable of paying the eliminated contestants who were subjected to unsafe conditions far more than $2,000 for their troubles. Like, sorry we endangered you and didn't feed you and didn't give you water and didn't give you any of the things that you needed to survive. Please don't sue us. Here's part of your rent. Like, are you fucking kidding me? $2,000? $2,000 for that? Like, could you not at least pay the employees that you employed? Because people on reality shows are still employees. There wouldn't be a show without them. They have to be there. In order for Mr. Beast to be as rich as he is, he needs to have those 2,000 people present competing for money, which means he should be paying them a living wage. If this is something that people could put down on their resume when applying to jobs or internships down the line, he should be paying them a living wage. He should be paying them more than $2,000 not to sue him. What is the difference between the Beast Games TV show that Mr. Beast is doing in collaboration with Amazon Prime and reality game shows that are hosted and put on by regular TV networks?
I'm not an expert on any of this. I've never worked on a TV set personally, but one of the big differences between the two that we know of is unionized workers. When you work in TV or show business or anything of the sort, it is really important for you to be a part of the union so that your rights are protected and you are paid fairly and you get benefits. Mr. Beast, after being given total creative control over this show, decided that he did not want to hire union workers because if they hired union workers, they would have to pay their benefits. But literally, who on this planet wants to work for no benefits? No one. So they couldn't find any non-union workers to hire. So the Mr. Beast people were like, well, we can't find anybody who's willing to work for no benefits, so we're going to hire union workers anyways. And because the rules do not apply to us, we just won't pay their benefits. That's not how that works. That's not how that works. So IATSE, the union, sent out a letter to everybody being like, hey, don't fucking work with this man, or you are out of our workers' rights club. Beast Games is an experiment. It's the biggest game show that's ever existed in history. Nobody knows how it could possibly go. It's a total experiment. Which means if you don't know what the results of your experiment are going to be, you need to have control variables. Which means you shouldn't be making these massive changes that would not be made in a regular reality show, like hiring non-union workers and refusing to pay benefits and not following through with any of the things needed for like safety of your contestants. A show like Wipeout follows a tried and true reality TV method, has dedicated cast and crew members that make it an enjoyable experience as an audience member, and the contestants know what they're getting into before they go into it because this show has been running for so many seasons. Everybody knows what happens on Wipeout. Without a shadow of a doubt, there have been injuries that have happened on the Wipeout sets. The difference is that the contestants were well aware of the risks before they partook in the activity. There were standards and qualifications that they had to meet in order to physically compete in the tasks that they had to do. And for a lot of the contestants, it wasn't about winning. They just wanted the experience of being on the show that they were a huge fan of. A show like Beast Games is incredibly high stakes. This is like your mortgage. This is a house. This is college. This is medical bills. And putting such high stakes on challenges that have no equal playing field whatsoever feels a hell of a lot more adjacent to the Hunger Games than to a show like Wipeout. I wouldn't be surprised if Mr. Beast was standing up on his Mr. Beast podium chanting down at the crowd, "May the odds be ever in your favor," before the fucking gong rang or something. Whenever a YouTuber gets outed as being a creep or a criminal, I always look at who their friends are. Now, while being friends with a creep or a criminal who is outed for something disgusting does not necessarily mean you are guilty by association, a lot of the time these YouTubers get outed as creeps or criminals, it's been happening in plain sight for a number of years. And as for Cody Ko, it's been fairly known about for a number of years that he allegedly slept with minors when he was in his mid-20s. And even though there hasn't been a ton of light shed on the topic until recently, the reason for that is because Cody has continually swept it under the rug. So I have a very hard time believing that Noel Miller had no idea that any of this was going on until recently. And if that were the case, even though in his body language it kind of seemed like he was becoming a little bit distant from Cody, Noel had an idea that this had been going on, that doesn't make it any less shady that they were continually collaborating over the years, even if, in the opinions of many, their friendship was manufactured and forced. I'm also never gonna forget the clip of the podcast they made in 2020 where they made fun of people who wash their ass in the shower. I saw a TikTok about that and it reminded me, and I feel like we really need to bring that back to people's attention. I have one-sided beef with the person who sat next to me during Deadpool and Wolverine just now, who would not stop fucking clapping every 4 seconds. I have never come closer to drop-kicking a human being in a public space. Legitimately, oh my god. It's one thing to laugh and react to things that need to be laughed at and reacted to. I couldn't fucking hear what was going on because every 4 seconds you were fucking clapping for no reason. There was nothing to clap for. Nothing was even happening. Why are you clapping? Why are you clapping? Oh my god, I'm going to clap my hands over your fucking face. And then there was this dad who brought his 8-year-old son to watch Deadpool and Wolverine, which I'm not judging you, but I am judging you for bringing your 8-year-old son to watch Deadpool and Wolverine. I don't want to share a space with an 8-year-old while I'm watching Deadpool. What the fuck? Anyways, the movie was really good. I liked it. The experience sharing it with audience members, subpar at best, but it was $5, so it's fine. While the Paris Olympics have been nothing short of extremely entertaining, this is neither the first nor the most unhinged Olympics to take place in Paris, France. I was doing a deep dive of obscure Olympic sports this morning, and wouldn't you know it, a lot of them began and ended in the Paris Olympics of 1900. There were such events such as horse high jump and horse long jump. Look at that horse go! This event did not last long. They also had an event called live pigeon shooting, which is exactly what it sounds like, and you would try and shoot as many live pigeons as you could in an allotted amount of time, and then if you missed more than 2, then you would be eliminated. People didn't really like this event very much for obvious reasons. Also at the Paris Olympics, there was a 200-meter water obstacle course race, which they need to bring back. Why did they get rid of that? That sounds like so much fun. Actually fairly positive that they are amending a part of the modern pentathlon and including some kind of water obstacle course. I could be wrong about that, but I'm glad that maybe it will come back. And an honorable mention to the most obscure Olympic sport that I've ever heard of, and it didn't actually become an Olympic sport, it was a test sport, and then it didn't go anywhere beyond Paris of 1900, but poodle clipping. Poodle clipping, where contestants would have to clip as much fur as they could off of as many poodles as they could in 2 hours. I think it sounds fun. It sounds very Parisian. Paris Olympics 1900. That would have been a wild thing to witness.
One of my favorite personal bits is refusing in any capacity to refer to Twitter as X, specifically to spite Elon Musk. Even when I have to search it in my phone, I'll type in Twitter, and I'm gonna do that until it stops popping up, girl. In conversation, in everyday life, on the internet, and you're like, oh, Ariel, Elon Musk doesn't care. He would. If he knew, he would. That's the thing. He's so loserish that it would make his eye twitch just a little. I know that factually. I'm sorry. He tried so hard to give a company that whack-ass name. You can't convince me that he don't give a fuck. He gives a lot of fucks, like many in succession. And I feel like as a collective, we're like, this app is called Twitter. We know this is what it's called. If we were talking about a normal person, I'd be like, yeah, of course, nobody would care about that. What a silly thing to care about that. But he would. I feel it in my heart. And it's something personally pleasing to my career that I feel like he will never win in this category. He will never win. No matter, you could take away the little bird, girl. You could take away the little logo. You can make that weird ass fucking shaped building. But it's Twitter till we all die, I fear. Every time I type Twitter into my phone, I'm like, and it pops up. I'm like, oh, I know he's mad. One thing I love about people who do cosplay is that they don't give a fuck. And honestly, in this day and age, that is a superpower. Like when people love to make fun of people who like dress up and da-da-da, they are free. You're not. You're not. Let's get that clear. And let's really clock it. You can't effectively make fun of somebody who doesn't give a fuck. They do not care. Now you just look sad and bitter. Like, I just hate this trend of thinking everything is embarrassing. Y'all won't even dance at a motherfucking dance club. That's what it's for. Because you're like, oh my God, this is embarrassing. This is cringe. No one's looking at you. Dead ass. Nobody cares what you're doing. I'm being so serious. Like, it's a little bit sad if you really think about it. And like, everybody's always like, oh my God, like, this is so cringe. It really isn't. People are just doing things that they like. But you never allowed yourself to do that. And so now you're mad. Now you're mad and you're trying to bully other people out of doing things that they like. But guess what? You could put on a little wig if you wanted to. You could do a little eyeliner. You could do a little makeup. You could dress up if you wanted. You could get on the internet and talk about your interests. You could, but you don't because you're scared. Oh, well, that's what I always think when I see people complaining about it. I'm like, oh, you want to do it so bad. Literally, when I see people complain, they're like, oh, this is embarrassing. I'm like, oh, you want to be them. You wish. Let's really wake it up. Some of these musicians' merch, why is it $1 billion? A sweatshirt should not be $80. A sweatshirt is not $80. Are you crazy? Whoever decided that was the new standard for merch prices, oh, you're sick. When I catch you, 60, maybe. That's still a lot, kind of, for a sweatshirt. But I guess that's maybe what sweatshirts cost. $80. You're sick and you're crazy. You're crazy. And I just always think about who makes the world go round with their dollar? The teenage girl. And it's like, what job is a teenage girl working? Something minimum wage, probably. Minimum wage in Texas is $7.25 an hour. Imagine you work 10 hours and you still can't buy that sweatshirt. You're sick. Like, and whenever I go to a concert, I always want to get something to have a souvenir. I wish they made more like tour specific merch, because some people it's just like their regular merch. So I'm like, girl, well, I was at the event. How do people know I was at the function then? Anyone could get this. I always try to get something, but I had pivoted to getting like hats or like accessories of some kind, maybe a bag or something, because I used to be a sweatshirt truther, and then they went from being like $50 to $60 to $70 to $80. We're losing the plot. We're losing the plot. Sorry, Israel defenders are crazy to me because you have to be insane to think that people are booing your athletes at the Olympics because they're anti-Semitic and not because of you bombing people for months and months, and we saw you. Like, do you not think that would be the more likely option, perhaps? Oh, they don't like this country because of the genocide. That's why I fear. And it wasn't just y'all. When South Africa was an apartheid state, they were banned. You should also be banned by that ruling. Like that fucking Israel account on Twitter, I only ever see it when somebody quote tweets it because they're always saying something stupid. But like, it's like they're living in a different universe. Like, I think they're from a different Israel. I don't know. I mean, guys, why would someone possibly say something so mean about me? Like, guys, I think everyone hates me. Yeah. Well, yeah. And should. Like literally any Israel, like, PR is always like, anyone who hates us is because they're anti-Semitic or the bombs. What if it's the bombs? Have we forgot about the bombs? Like, why do people fall to their knees when they find out a famous person does drugs? Why? Like, screaming, crying, throwing up. What if we used our brains? And this is not me saying, oh, everybody who's famous does drugs. But I'll tell y'all right now, as someone who went to school with a lot of rich people do a lot of drugs. More drugs than however much drugs you think they do. It is more than that. Mainly that one, you know which one. Mainly that one. And so casually, it's actually really crazy. So again, I'm not saying it's all famous people, but the overlap between people who are very famous and people who are very rich, I fear that is sometimes true. Like, the odds, I'm sorry. Like, but then people will like scream and cry and throw up over it. Like, girl, who gives a fuck? Or even like cigarettes. People will scream, cry, throw up. Weed. Oh my God. I remember when people found out that One Direction smoked weed. It was a worldwide alert event. Like, it was crazy. Why the hell are people releasing tour tickets, tour dates, when the album for the tour is not out? What are people supposed to do? What if you were like, oh my God, do you want to go see this artist with me? And they'd be like, oh my God, yeah, it's so true. Like, can I hear what they're gonna play? No. Literally, no, you can't. Sorry, no. Like, it's not there. It doesn't exist. I am using a pen to take my hair down because I don't have a rat tail comb, but I'm sorry. I don't remember anybody ever doing that before. We used to be a real country where people would release an album, you get to sit on it for a week or so, and they're like, guys, here's a tour. Why are the tickets out when the album that you're touring isn't out? That doesn't make sense to me. I personally, I think a concert experience is the best when you know and like the songs, obviously. And I understand that it might be for a marketing perspective, especially if the album's what if people don't like the album? Well, girl, you already bought the ticket, so I guess you gotta go anyways. But that doesn't make sense. That does not make sense to me. In general, album rollouts and concerts and things like that have been so different as of late. How it used to work is that you put out a single, okay, with visuals. The single has visuals. You get a music video, okay? We marinate on that one for a little bit. Then we get another single, perhaps, with visuals. You let that one marinate, and then you announce an album. And then you have, when that comes out, you have lead single, whatever. You let us chill for a second, and then you're like, oh my God, hey guys, they're going on tour. And then everyone cheers, And it used to be the tour date is in a few months. Now they're like, guys, I'm going on tour, and the first date was yesterday. The first date was, in fact, I'm on tour right. In fact, I just announced it, and I've already been touring. So I hope you guys are ready and know all the songs.
Joe Biden has officially dropped out of the 2024 election with just months to spare. But we got what we wanted. He's gone. Even more groundbreaking is that he endorses Kamala Harris to be the next president of the United States, which, black woman president, okay. I feel how you feel about Kamala Harris, because we felt our feelings when we heard that she was going to be VP then. We can feel them now. Her legacy is bespeckled, and it hasn't changed all that much. But beyond that, we have to do our part to get behind her as a nominee, because we did all that kicking and screaming and crying to get him out of here just so we can throw a black woman in the ring. We can't just leave her there. Like, if you've ever been one of those, like, I love black women, listen to black women, oh, black women should lead the country and lead the charge and blah, 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 that y'all always say, now is the time to genuinely back that up. Because in this heightened era of misogyny and misogynoir and racism and bigotry and chaos, we are putting her up against Donald Trump. And I'm not saying she's not going to handle it. One thing about a black woman is that she's going to handle it, especially a black woman with a business bob. But we did all that screaming and yelling and hooting to get him out. As we should, he needed to go. But now we got to do our part for the nominee that we have. So make your memes and then laugh your way to the polls. Please. Kamala Harris hasn't been endorsed for more than 24 hours, and people are already comparing her to Mark Robinson. And that should tell you everything, both about how she's going to be treated this upcoming election cycle and how black women are perceived in general. No, this is Mark Robinson. He's running for governor in North Carolina, and as a native North Carolinian, I'll tell you this, he's awful. He wants to ban abortion under any circumstances. He wants trans women arrested. He thinks that women should just keep their skirts closed if they don't want to get pregnant. He's a whole host of things. And people are saying, genuinely, that telling people to vote for Kamala Harris is like telling them to vote for Mark Robinson. They're not the same. And that highlights the margin of error that exists for black women in the world, which is none. I'm not saying this because I just love Kamala Harris, because I don't. I know about her past, the decisions she's made as a prosecutor, and how that's impacted marginalized communities for years. They're comparing her to the literal worst person that they know. And the thing is, and this isn't okay, she hasn't done anything that many people in politics haven't already done and have gotten away with. I mean, the current sitting president sponsored the 1994 crime bill, which is responsible for the mass incarceration we see today, and we voted for him in 2020. In fact, winner of the 2016 popular vote, Hillary Clinton, gave us the term super predator in reference to black boys. And again, I'm not saying it's right, because it's not, but I am saying it's on par with her peers, something that no one has taken any issue with to this extreme up until this point. At the end of the day, Kamala Harris is a former prosecutor who, in my opinion, made the same poor decisions as every other mediocre white man around her. But now everybody's like, oh, I can't vote for the cop, so let's give it to the fascist, because y'all genuinely see them as the same. And this, coupled with the fact that Donald Trump and his friends is about to unleash a type of racism we haven't seen probably in decades on national television, means that she is in for a big roller coaster, and it tells us a lot about how black women are continuously perceived in the United States. Please don't share that video of Sonia Massey. Just, you can watch it, that's your choice. It's graphic, I'm not watching it, but please stop sharing it. It is important that we have this video and that videos like this exist so that we can have evidence of the truth, so that they can't lie to us as they've been doing literally for centuries. But we do not need to keep playing pass around hot potato with these graphic videos of these brutalized black bodies and these human beings begging for safety in the last moments of their life. Every single time a video of another brutalized black body hits the internet, it goes viral. And on one hand, it's good in that it gets us talking about it. But at the end of the day, what's really happening besides talking about it? The first time, in reference to George Floyd, that was huge, because that was a wake-up call for a lot of y'all. A lot of y'all did not know that racism still existed that way until that video hit. Since then, there have been countless videos. It feels like an endless stream of these videos. And instead of being the learning moments or the moments for change that they're supposed to be, they just become like communal viewing parties of horror. So stop sharing them, because they're not doing the radical, groundbreaking thing anymore. They're just sharing these horrific last moments of people's lives on display for clicks and views. Just stop. I don't think we're mad enough that Donald Trump is on the ballot again at all. Like, I don't think we sit with that enough. And before I start, let me just say, I'm a complainer who loves to complain. I'm never going to fault anybody for complaining, especially about the political system in place. So before I say this, I'm not saying we shouldn't have grievances with the Democratic nominees, because we should. However, this upcoming election is the third presidential election that I can vote in. And for every single one, Donald Trump has been on the ballot. That means that every presidential election, for the last 3 presidential elections, the framing has been, how do we beat this evil? Why do we have to choose between the lesser of these 2 evils? And I get it, because why should we have to? It's like every 4 years we have to try and figure out how to beat Satan. And realistically, anybody's better than him, but we don't spend enough time trying to figure out how to keep Satan off the ballot. There are 4 years between A and B. And in between those 4 years, we don't think ahead at all. And so every 4 years, every upcoming presidential election cycle, when he's back on the ballot, we're upset that we have to do this song and dance again, only to do the song and dance, let the outcome be what it may, and then wait another 4 years for him to come back. He is like a rash that cannot be scratched. And instead of spending so much time wondering why our ointments don't work, we need to figure out what we can do to get rid of the rash at all. And no FBI agent, I'm not suggesting anything bad. I'm just saying we keep taking this reoccurring nightmare really well for some reason. What happened to Sonia Massey is exactly why we need to continue having conversations about defunding the police and why this conversation should have never ended in the first place. It's not just because what happened to her is so horrific and violent and senseless that the officer responsible was charged with first-degree murder right away. It's not just that the field of policing is inherently corrupt or the fact that it allows for this kind of brutality to take place time and time again unchecked. It's that Sonia Massey had paranoid schizophrenia and that she called the police asking for help, looking for assistance because she thought someone was in her home. And the result is that she lost her life. The reality is that what happened to Sonia Massey, while horrific, is not a unique situation. In fact, 30 to 50% of people unalived by the police have a mental illness or disability. And it means that not only are officers not trained to deal with situations where somebody might have a mental illness or a disability and therefore constantly respond out of fear or whatever, it means that they simply don't want to be, they don't have that empathy, and they carry that ableist prejudice into every single scenario they walk into. Because if you listen to the first half of the video, and again, I haven't watched it, I'm not going to, but I have heard bits and pieces of it, the officers ask her like leading questions, pulling her into a scenario where she could be perceived as a threat, as justification for whatever they were going to do next. Because they knew what they were going to do next, which is why they then, when they told her family what had happened, they called it a suicide. Because they knew the whole time walking into that scenario, they knew their biases and they knew what they wanted to do when they got there. And the reality is, that isn't a unique situation. That is the reality for 30 to 50% of the people that are unalived by police. So when we say we need to abolish the police or at least defund the police, this is why. Because this kind of prejudice cannot be reformed. Oh, she has to earn my vote. I'm not just going to give it to her. She has to work for it. What do y'all think campaigns are for? Better yet, what compels y'all to say this about a black woman in a world where you haven't said it like that for any other election in the last probably decade and a half? See, ever since Harris was endorsed, a lot of comment sections have been filled with people saying, oh, well, I'm not just going to give it to her, as if suddenly a black woman in the United States was given anything, much less a position in power, just willy-nilly. And never mind the common sense thing that campaigns are people trying to earn your vote. And the reason that Harris hasn't really campaigned yet is because she hasn't been running up until a few days ago. This wasn't the rhetoric at all for the last several election cycles, including this one, until Biden dipped out. In fact, for the past 3 election cycles, 2016, 2020, and 2024, up until a few days ago, the rhetoric has been, we have to do whatever it takes to defeat the other guy. And I'm not saying that's right, but it is what it is. But a few days ago, all of a sudden, y'all were all, oh, but she has to earn my vote. She has to work for it. I can't just give it to her. Why do you feel the need to say that? What compels you to say that? And let me be clear, I'm not telling y'all to vote for Harris. Again, vote for who you want. But I am telling y'all that your biases are showing loud and clear. Because on one hand, just to say that suggests that you think that she thinks she should just be given the election, that we should just give it to her. And that kind of reinforces this idea that like black people need handouts or can't work for it the regular way. But on the other hand, to say that at all on the heels of the last several election cycles, again, including this one, means that you are holding her to a standard that you all did not hold any of the other mediocre white candidates to in the last several years. So the next time you feel compelled to say, oh, well, she has to earn my vote with no clear follow-up as to what that would entail, don't. There's polio in Palestine. They have detected polio in the water in Palestine. If you didn't know, and you might not, because in the United States, polio is incredibly rare. Polio is a disease that gives you like flu-like symptoms in mild cases, but can easily paralyze you for life, especially if you are a child. Is incredibly contagious, like exceptionally contagious, spreads incredibly easily through contaminated water, and is incredibly preventable with vaccines, which we have tons of. And yet, there is polio in the water in Palestine, a place that is still disproportionately populated with children. And while there have been no documented human cases of polio in Palestine yet, It's likely not because the virus isn't going around, but more so because the healthcare infrastructure is shattered. In fact, before this, Palestine had an incredibly robust vaccination program against polio, but because the healthcare infrastructure is shattered, all that progress seems to be going to waste. And yet the IOF soldiers are getting vaccinated against polio, while the children in Palestine are largely left to their own devices. Violence goes beyond bombs and fires and shootings. It's in the lack of food and in starvation. It's in the dirty living conditions. It's in the water. Here are a few baby FAQs since I gave birth 7 days ago. Will I be sharing her name? No. For her anonymity's sake and mine, her name is us business. But on here, she's Baby Simone because I'm Jordan Simone and she's Baby Simone. Will I be sharing her face? Also no. This is probably about as much as I'm comfortable of having her online. I'm going to be holding her a lot, so the back of the head is kind of inevitable, but her face, again, for privacy's sake, for the fact that weirdos are online, for AI's sake, I'm just going to keep her right here. Will I still be making baby content? Yes, I love being a mother. I love being her mother. I love talking about her. I love talking about all things baby. So think like story times and chit chat. I'm also open to any ideas that you guys might have about content you want to see, so let me know. How are you and baby girl doing? We're doing great. Yes, coming home with a brand new person is a pretty big adjustment, but I think we're figuring each other out okay, and I'm healthy. More importantly, she is healthy. We're doing great. We're doing awesome. Except I'm tired, but what else is new? And that's it. Let me know if you have more baby questions, because I have more baby answers. Love you.